Welcome back, everyone, to our playthrough of the career mode here in NASCAR Heat 2. So we come off of the last couple of races have been very hard fought for us, and we've had some great finishes considering the type of racing that we had. Great finishes for me, as I've mentioned multiple times, don't necessarily mean a win or a top 5 or even a top 10. It's all about the racing, and if we have some hard fought racing, which we certainly have had here recently at places like Charlotte and Dover, and even in our most previous race at Pocono. So very hard racing, and it was a lot of fun. That's what I'm looking for from this series. That's what I'm looking for from the career mode. Now that we've had to sort of shift gears, once you realize that the difficulty is not there and you just can't use the open setup, the setups that you would prefer to use to get the most speed out of the car, once you realize that that's out of the question, then I think the last few races really show the type of fun that you can have once you sort of accept the inevitable about the difficulty level. So now we're ready to head to Michigan. Now Michigan is, in all three series, essentially wide open. Okay, you can get by with some lifting there and really not lose much of any speed if you need to, but for the most part, it's wide open. Now we're going to do some changes to the setup, of course, that will keep it from being wide open, and that's going to make it difficult to pass. And the reason is because these guys will fight like cats and dogs for the bottom of the racetrack. And when they do that, and that includes on the straightaways as well, unfortunately, so whenever they do that, it's going to look more like an IndyCar race than anything. And as that happens, it becomes more difficult to pass because you are forced to make a decision in how you want to try to move forward. Do you want to try to move forward by being patient on the bottom of the track? Maybe, play a little bumper tag, move some guys out of the way and try to move your way up that way? Or do you want to try to get on the outside and just hammer down and go as hard as you can and hope you've got enough speed to make it work out there? So you got to make some choices. Traditionally, we've been sticking to the inside, but who knows? We'll have to see what the situation dictates. As always, we'll be starting from the back. No practice, no qualifying, none of that. And we'll just see how it goes. That's part of the fun of this series for me, is that we don't run any practice or qualifying laps. So I never know exactly what I've got until I get down into the corner at speed. So with that in mind, before we get to the racetrack, I do want to take a quick look at the standings. Now, of course, the point standings really don't mean anything to us because we have the playoff standings. And in that regard, we are perfectly fine. We have 20 playoff points. Nobody else has more than 10. That will, of course, change, I'm sure, as time goes on, as we're not quite to halfway through the season. But you also notice that now, one of the things I've been referencing is how many people have victories. We went for a while and had a few number of drivers with victories, but they had multiple victories. So that was leaving possibly some spots open in the playoffs for strictly points and no victories. Well, now we have 8 drivers who have at least one victory, and with us being less than halfway through the season, it's looking more and more likely that it's going to be hard to get in unless you have at least one victory. So we'll keep an eye on that as time goes on, but for now, it's time to head to Michigan. Before we get the race started, let's take a quick look at the setup, and not a lot different going on here. I am continuing to use the 100 pounds of rear spring split, meaning that the right rear spring is 100 pounds heavier than or stiffer than the left rear spring. So other than that, everything looks fairly standard. We're using 8.5 inches on both the left and the right side track bar. Should be a fun race. Let's get it started. All right, green flag is out here at Michigan, 26 lap race. So that will go by pretty quickly at a track this big and fast. All right, so first things first, we've got to make our decision. Do we try to go and work our way low or work our way high? I'm inclined to go high at the beginning of the race, simply because everybody's so packed up and we have tons of room, as you can see out here. And I think they're going to hug the bottom more on the straightaways and such anyway. So that just basically opens the track up for us, and we'll find out how much speed we've got. So far, so good. All right, we'll see what kind of speed we've got on the outside here. I'm definitely going to have to lift. The question is how much and how often. But so far, so good. We're working our way up almost to the top 30. Plenty of room to run 3 and 4 wide if everybody holds their line. All right, so far it's been pretty smooth out here on the outside. A few tense moments because I'm not exactly sure what line these guys are going to run, particularly as we approach corner entry. All right, going to get all the way out of the gas. Woo, that was really tight. Drove that in too hard that time. And we'll start to get a gauge of how much speed we have compared to these guys. It doesn't help anything when they float up in front of you on the straightaway like that. But you can see if we get down closer to the bottom and run that second groove, then we definitely have more speed than the cars we're racing around right now. Speed's well over 200 miles an hour, over 210 was a number I briefly saw at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. All right, great run off the corner. Wow. Almanair, just come right on up in front of us if you want to. No problem. All right, so we're running half throttle down the straightaway because we definitely have more speed than these guys. The question will be, how far up through the field can we get until we reach the cars that are running the same speed as us? And then it's going to become very difficult for us to make up any type of positions on the high side. Oh, these guys do not hesitate to pull right up in front of you. Wow. All it takes is one time that I don't realize they're coming and somebody will be into the wall. All right, so we're up to 25th now. 6 laps in. So not bad. Car feels pretty good. This is the kind of feel that you want from a car. It's really tight, but this is the kind of feel that generally we're going for here in the career mode. Oh, way out of the gas for Danica Patrick in front of us. Oh, I see smoke in front of us. Let's hope that's the old dreaded tire smoke that you get for no good reason here in NASCAR Heat. Both last year's game and this year's game. All right, so we've made our way up into the top 20. And we're still looking very good on speed. You can see we still have a good bit of speed compared to the guys we're running around. And so far I'm able to be fairly aggressive with the throttle, particularly on the exit of the corner. I'm trying to take it pretty easy on entry. Ooh, look out there, 27. Menard almost got more than he bargained for. Try the inside on Menard this time, since these guys are migrating out closer and closer to the outside wall on the straightaway, which is a great thing because that is definitely a more realistic line to run in a stock car. All right, back to the outside, trying to get around Matt Kenseth. It's going to be weird not having him around next year. Same thing with Junior and oh, look out. Holy cow. That's a hard thing to get used to. These guys just pulling right up in front of you like that. Because you keep thinking that they're going to give you the room, particularly this early in the race. These AI are just not designed for that. All right, so now it looks like if we can get down toward the bottom, we'll have a little bit of clear track in front of us, maybe for a lap or so, until we catch these guys in front of us, if we can catch them. We're up into 16th position now, so far so good. Alright, I didn't even come all the way out of the throttle that time on the entry to turn 3. Maybe half to a quarter throttle, somewhere in that range. It's hard for me to tell exactly how much. Never been a big fan of the pedals that come with this wheel. I feel like they really missed the boat with those. They're serviceable, but they don't really have any feel to them. We're going to try to force our way on the outside. Mostly because I didn't want to have to back out of the throttle and lose all that momentum we had. One of the great things about Michigan is that you've got plenty of room around these AI cars to drift to the high side and try to give them plenty of room on the entry and exit of the corners. Okay, up to 14th now. And looks like we're still gaining on the cars in front of us, so it looks like a top 10 is possible. We're roughly about halfway through the race, so it looks like we're going to have plenty of time to get ourselves into the top 10 if the speed is there. And so far the speed definitely looks there because we're pulling in on Joey Logano pretty quickly. From several car lengths back, we caught him quite quickly. All right, you can see a lot of moving around, a lot of jostling for position in front of us, running 2, sometimes 3 wide. That is a lot of fun to do, but it is very tense to do it with the AI in this game because you never quite know where they're going to go. Luckily, this is a track where they've got room to do some things, so hopefully you can come through it with a little bit of beating and banging, but no wrecks. Let's get back down here to the bottom. You can see we're closing in on these guys. Oh, very quickly. Had to get completely out of the gas there to stay out of the 21. All right, so now we've got some decisions to make. Do we try to stay high side, or do we try to go down to the low side and try to pick them off one by one? Because you can see they're sticking right to that white line. Let's see where they go on the straightaway. I would imagine they're going to stay on the white line, and they do. So that tells me that the path of least resistance is going to be on the high side, if we've got the speed to do it. All right, great run coming off turn 2. We should be able to pass at least 2 or 3 cars this way. You can see the one car is no match for us on the straightaway. Be very aggressive with the throttle here. I lifted back to about half throttle on corner entry and then right back in it. That brings us right up to the 41 and the 88. Okay, we want to get to their outside before we get to corner entry because that'll give us position to where we can make our normal entry into the corner. All right, good. Both of these guys beat us through that corner. Let's try to get a little draft off of them down the straightaway. And we'll see what we can do with them in turn 3 and 4. This is our best end of the track. All right, looks like we're going to be ahead of Kurt Busch by the time we get there, but still side by side. Just can't quite carry enough speed through that corner to do what I want to do. But still, we came through there okay. We basically broke even with Kurt Busch that time. Oh, look out. You can see in front of us the 18 car go right up to the wall. I don't know if he lost a tire or what happened there. But that was definitely something you don't want to see happen right in front of you. Luckily, he stayed up against the wall. And once again, that's why the caution flags are off. Because we come here to race, we didn't come here to ride around under caution. I've done plenty of that in online races over the years. I don't particularly want to do any more of it. Nothing like those races at particularly Daytona or Talladega where it might be scheduled to be about an hour race based on the number of laps, and then you end up spending at least an hour and a half, and most of that time under caution. No thank you. All right, so we have 8 laps to go. We are in 6th position. So not only did we manage to get to the top 10, we've done better than that. We are now hunting for a top 5. But with only 8 laps to go, that's a long way to get up to the top 7. Or excuse me, top 5 rather. I'm not sure if we're going to have enough time to get there. But only one way to find out. We're going to drive this thing hard and see if we can't get there. Of course, running around the white line is the shortest path. That's the shortest distance, but we want to make sure we get back out wide to get a better entry. The AI don't have to worry about that, but we do. Again, the leaderboard would be helpful here if you want to see down to the tenths of a second that you're behind and whether or not you're catching them, but for our purposes, I prefer just to do it based on the visual. So the car feels really good. I mean, we've got some nice speed in the car. That's how we got up to the top 6 where we are now. But it doesn't have enough speed that we're going to get up front and just dominate. Not within the short time frame that we have, of course. This is why these short races are basically a necessity for us. As much as I am a huge fan of long races, I absolutely love endurance style races. Anything an hour or longer, I'm in for, but not in this game. It's just no fun in this game because you'll eventually get your way up to the front, and from there you'll just dominate and probably end up putting many cars a lap down. Unless, of course, you severely handicap yourself on speed, and then it's decidedly less fun generally. Alright, so we are, I believe, catching these guys, but we're running out of time. You can look in the rearview mirror and see that we have gotten away from Junior. He's still hanging in there, but we've got a little distance on him, which for our purposes right now means that he's not really drafting with us down the straightaway, which would be helpful. But with 4 laps to go, it's going to take a lot for us to get to him, even though we're definitely closing in. Looks like that is going to be Truex right in front of us, fighting with what appears to be Larson at first glance. And I can't tell who the other car is. So I'm going to try to sniff any little draft I can. We're a little bit too far back for that right now, but as we continue to close in, 3 laps to go. And now you can just visually see that we're getting there. So who knows, we might be close enough that on the last lap we can make an attempt to get ourselves into the top 5. It's not out of the question. Basically what I'm trying to do now, anytime you're tight, the focus is on the center of the corner, getting the car rotated, and whenever you're tight, that means just simply getting out of the throttle as much as you need to, sometimes all the way out of the throttle, and maybe even using a little brake to help rotate the car. Not at this track, but at some of the tracks. Alright, so we're going to be there. With 1 lap to go, we're here. The question is, can we get by any of them? We've definitely run them down, so we're faster than them. We know that much. Alright, 78 gives us the low side. All right, 42 blocking the bottom. We're going to go back to the high side. And I think we got something for Keselowski, but I have to have room to do it. All right, I was out of the throttle very little right there. And let's see, do we have anything for the 2? Looks like we're pulling ahead. And, okay, a podium finish. Not bad, a top 3 finish here at Michigan. So, very nice. That was a lot of fun. We had some time in traffic, racing around other cars. We also had some time out running our own laps in some free and open track. So that's a good mixture. And we'll definitely take home that 3rd place finish. You can see Jimmy Johnson gets the victory. And I believe he already had 2 victories on the season, so that's going to give him 3, making him our closest competitor with regards to the points championship. And yes, you can see, of course, he's listed 3rd here on this particular points standings list. But with those 3 victories, that's going to put him 2nd to us in the playoff standings. We ended up with the fastest lap, but just not enough laps to get to the front. I like it. That's what we like. That's sort of the best case scenario for us right there. So over the last few races, I think things have been great. We've had an 18th place finish, which was lots of fun, and now we've had all the way up to a 3rd place finish, which was also lots of fun. Now the incentive contract, we don't worry about that. And now we've got a message from Joey Logano.
Hey, you've been really professional out on the track lately. Nice, clean driving. You know, if you keep it up, your rivals just might become your friends. This would make your life a lot easier. Believe me.
All right, so of course, Michigan is a much easier place to drive clean since there's so much room, and the entries and exits to the corner are much wider, giving you lots of room, lots of ways to stay off the other cars. So, yeah, always nice to have a race like that where you don't have any drama with other cars, that kind of thing. All right, let's see what we want to do for the next incentive contract. Not really a big deal, simply because the money doesn't mean anything to us. And for our purposes, realistically, the easy one is kind of what we're shooting for. Top 10s, we're definitely not going to get all 5 top 10s in the next 5 races. That's just not going to happen. Not with the way we're working these setups and just testing things out. And we're definitely not going to be in the top 5 with 3 victories and leading the most laps. None of that's going to be a thing. So I'll tell you what, we'll just stick with the normal and go with that. So now we come to Sonoma, our first road course event. And Sonoma is extremely tricky because it's so technical. And I've mentioned multiple times I am not a fan of the road courses in NASCAR Heat, both Evolution and NASCAR Heat 2. But we'll talk about that more in our next video. For now, thank you very much for joining me, and stay tuned for more NASCAR Heat 2.